Hey there, I am Meredith and I am an intuitive and an astrologer based out of the mountains of North Carolina. And today I am tenderly coming to offer my perspective on some of the transits. I've been a little bit quiet and I have received, though, so much support in the last week for the passing of my cat. And I really, really seriously appreciate every message that I've received. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity really fast before I get into it to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, truly. So, there's a lot of like integration needing to still happen and happening from the last eclipse. Like that was a doozy. That was intense as fuck, like in many ways for many people, where like the eclipse was in Taurus, at the very middle of Taurus. It was at the 16th degree, I believe, and it was connected on the very same degree to Uranus, which is the unexpected. So what I'm noticing, and this is kind of what I felt like going into it, was that there's a lot of like just people not really feeling good, right now is what I'm observing. I think like that there's just certain things that are like just uncomfortable right now. And that, you know, I think that depending on like how many planets you have in fixed signs determines like the level of intensity that you would have experienced during this eclipse, right? But I really want people to keep in mind that Jupiter moves into Taurus next year and will be there until 2024. So just wanting to really like allow that information to just, we're kind of discouraged a little bit in the Taurus Scorpio axis, right? In the part of our charts that we have that, there's an energy of feeling like discouraged, like, and I think that it has a lot to do with the square to Saturn that's been ongoing between Uranus and Saturn. It's just been like a really hard, especially if you have fixed signs in your chart like me. But it's refining us though, and I think that like it's taking us to this like whole new level when Jupiter moves into Taurus. And I'm not saying that that's not also the case in Jupiter in Aries, but I'm saying that pretty soon Saturn, which is has been in Aquarius since March of 2020 and then December of 2020, pretty soon that energy is going to move off. So it's going to start like really, really moving forward. And we're going to see the last degrees of Saturn and Aquarius, much unlike we have seen them before. And, I think that that's really going to bring, Saturn kind of like drops off this like, it's all about karma, right? And if you think about what karma actually is, it's just the law of cause and effect. Like when you break it down, when you kind of like take it out of this idea of like kind of like that we're paying for something or that we are like suffering. I think that a lot of unnecessary suffering happens in the name of something called karma that really isn't. It's just karma is just the law of cause and effect. So it's kind of like I find that toward the end of Saturn transits, we kind of like experience the fruits of the causes that we've like really, set in. And I do believe that we are like kind of really encountering a lot of things from our past lives, other lives that we may have lived, you know, in a new way, because there's so much like transpersonal energy. If you look at like the signs Capricorn through Pisces are very occupied by the outer planets. And so it's kind of like it feels all very up to the fates, everything that is happening, both on a microcosmic level and a macrocosmic level. And I think that this space where Jupiter is at right now in the 29th degree of Pisces, which is just extremely intense, very emotional, very watery, very much like delusional potentially. But this is reminding us to have faith and to have trust that that everything happens for a reason, and that we're not just like, there's a magical thread. I always talk about it with Jupiter and Pisces, where you can like give yourself fully to the Most High, for lack of a better word, because words don't really do whatever that is justice, right? And kind of receive this like I don't know, just like a broader, bigger understanding, right? Because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, so it carries within it pieces of each sign, and can understand things on a broader level. And so that's the gift that we have access to. There's a lot of like magic in there, even though it's kind of like, it's a little eerie. I mean, I can only speak from what I've observed, and I've been staying very much like out of the news cycle, except for people who are sending me things on Kanye, which I appreciate. But yeah, so anyway, so Jupiter is at the 29th degree of Pisces, right? Wrapping up this like sort of, I mean, it really like was promoted by a lot of astrologers, this like Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces, as this extremely magical event. And one of my favorite astrologers, Fiona Edgar, she talked about how like, no, this is not going to be like, because we have to take into account with the planets also where we are, what time it is, so to speak, in terms of like, the signs and the seasons of the, just the changes in the atmosphere and things like this, right? So if you take into account like that, right now we're kind of like, I feel, this is just my perception, that we're kind of like on the rise out of like this long dark age. That's how I see it anyway. And like, I don't know, I guess I can't not see it that way, or I can't not see it like with a shadow cast over like the Jupiter Neptune magical unicorn transit that was happening in April of this year of 2022, and is happening also now as Jupiter kind of gets closer to Neptune again before it moves back into Aries in December. It's like, I think that there's a lot of things that really seemed great, and where there's like the illusion of something. And I think it's like, how well did that materialize when Jupiter came into Aries, and we had to sort of like act on whatever it is. And, I just think that it's like, there was a drop off point for a lot of people in terms of like their personal life, and that space from Pisces to Aries is very much like the death birth like window, where like the beginning of Aries is birth and the end of Pisces is the end of the end, so there's just a lot of like, I find the 29th degree of Pisces to be very like sleepy, to be very escapist, to be extremely delusional, to be honest with you. And I feel that all right, I have my ephemeris loaded, that's good. So, and I feel that like there's a tendency for all of us right now, because Mars is in retrograde station in Gemini, and Mars is in Gemini. That's very mental, like it's very mental, it's conversational, it's like we're rethinking everything, like there's a lot of like surgeries going on all of our lives in a way where like, I don't know, I feel like it's harder to get work done every day. And there's a lot of things wherever Mars is in your chart that's kind of just being addressed from like earlier this year and some of the steps that we took, right? So Mars in Gemini retrograde is squaring both Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces that are both retrograde. And this is happening alongside the square between Saturn and Uranus. Like, this is intense. Like, I can't understate it. It is intense energy for sure. So Mars in retrograde station in Gemini, squaring Neptune and Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, is sort of bringing up this energy of like, where we don't know quite what is real. Mars in Gemini does seek out the facts and like the information and the logic of things. And, you know, there's something that we can't quite reconcile, right, with our logical minds potentially in each of our lives, where it's like hard to, you know, really wrap our like logical brain around it. And there is just a lot of like having to have faith and have trust. And I think that like there's a lot of people who, you know, are practitioners of various different forms of spirituality, just in their personal life, not in their career or anything, who have gone through these stages of maybe, I hate to say like ego death, right? But that's just kind of like what's coming up for me to say. There's people who have gone through these like ego death experiences. And this, to me, this end stage Pisces energy that a lot of planets are going to move through over the next few years. Like Saturn is going to move through, Neptune is going to move through, and Jupiter has already moved through and will move through again before the end of the year. This like 29 degrees Pisces, 0 degrees Aries point, right? So it's like, what was I just saying? I lost my train of thought. It's like there's a lot of planets passing through that point is what I was saying. And I think that like there's a lot of potential to kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit. Oh, I remember what I was saying. Yay. I was saying about how like there's stages of like spiritual development, right? And I've been obviously like, well, not obviously, but I've been studying anthroposophy for the last 2 years, and I've really enjoyed like, and maybe almost 3 years, and I've really begun to like deepen in that sense and enjoy it. And what I'm learning is that there's these different stages of initiation, of awakening, of spiritual development, right? And where you just get taken a little bit deeper each time, or a lot deeper, depending on like where you're at in your practices and in your disciplines and in your states, right? So, you know, so there's these phases of initiation that we go through where we learn how to understand how to work with the unknown, how to relax and have faith, and how to work with the elements, and how to like, you know, really just sort of like come to a new level of like authorship, working with the current and with what, you know, I perceive like our connection to source energy to be. And that's really what we learn right now, because it's like we can't really trust our mind with Mars retrograde in Gemini. And I wouldn't really necessarily, I would just view everything with discernment and caution that's coming into your sphere, because there's a lot of like potential to be in the realm of escapism and like just kind of losing yourself into something else that actually ends up being like not as productive as like it looks like it is on the surface. So the tendency exists for sure for that, and for us to go unconscious and get lost, and you know, like, so, you know, for me, I don't think I've had a choice, because I've kind of just been in like grief mode, and have been consistently just like doing candles all the time, like all kinds of different candles all day burning here. And I think that the more that you can incorporate like the Virgo, because especially as we come into like these next few weeks, Mercury is going to move into Sagittarius, and I'm going to check to see exactly when that is. I think it's okay, so Venus moves into Sagittarius November 17th, and Mercury moves into Sagittarius November 18th. And that is definitely going to like lighten things up for sure. Like, can't deny it. It'll bring a much needed humor. And I feel like this Scorpio, like the last of like Mercury and Venus and the sun in Scorpio, is just like super dense, emotional, heavy, like until then. I mean, that's just how it feels for me. But like, obviously don't take that on if it doesn't resonate. I think that like Mercury and Venus moving into Sagittarius brings up this mutable, like circus clown T-square energy between Mars and Gemini, which is going to be retrograde, the sun, Mercury and Venus in Sagittarius, and then Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces. And I just feel, as someone with a bunch of Virgo placements in my personal chart, that I would love to see a level of people applying their own personal Virgo. Go hug a tree, go sit your ass down in nature, put your feet on the ground, ionize, whatever, like that, you know, like the technology of like earthing. Like that's what we all need. We need to like lean into the qualities of Taurus. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you guys what you need to do, but it would be helpful for people to begin to reduce things down to their personal lives. What can I control? What can I build right now, right here? How can I reconnect to like the natural cycles and seasons of the earth and what is divine? Like Virgo, Taurus, like those are like our pillars through, you know, this kind of like circus clown, frankly, like Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces kind of like T-square that we're coming into for parts of November and December. So I would recommend, just staying conscious. And then also Jupiter is going to station direct on November 23rd. And I'm very personally excited for this. Jupiter retrograde, brings in this sort of like this need to find the divine and the truth and the way and whatever else within ourselves. It's less visible within the outside world. And so Jupiter stationing direct, I feel like, and moving through and finishing through Pisces could be a little blessing for us if we're willing and able to see it. You know, I work on this astrology app with people where like I just do readings over this app, and you know, it's been really a lovely position to have like stability and stuff like that for me. But more often than not, I see people that like don't seem to have any acknowledgement of like the things that they do have or the blessings that they have. I feel that like there's a blessing coming in with Jupiter finishing out in Pisces after it stations direct on November 23rd. And I just like, you're not going to be willing to even receive it if all you can see is what's wrong. And I know that there's a lot wrong. There's a lot that like mental health stuff is coming up really strongly for people, like addiction things are coming up really strongly for people. And I totally get it, but this is like the ring of fire, and like it is a refinement process, and it definitely is not easy for sure. So if you're having a time out there in the multiverse, then I feel yeah. And like, this is some very trial by fire, by water, by air astrology, 100%. And I know that there are people that are really like rising through it. And it's a beautiful thing also to see people use challenges and to use and almost to transmute them and to eat that energy of like, this is a challenge, and then they make it into something, whatever it is that is challenging them, they make it into something that is for their good. And I have seen this a lot recently, and it's been really inspiring to watch from my bed. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, when did I create a community like this? And I'm like, between naps, like I'm just like, it's crazy. And I just I really appreciate you all for following or for just, you know, engaging with my work. And I hope that you are keeping your feet on the ground through like Sagittarius season. I'll try to upload a little bit more regularly. Hopefully my internet begins to cooperate with me. But yeah, have a great day. Bye.